Everybody, back again with another fresh installment here. We are continuing the coverage of the World Chess Championship match between none other than Ding Liren of China and Gukesh of India. So in this game, uh, Ding has got the white pieces against Gukesh. Yesterday, Ding had then defeated Gukesh with the black pieces. So the pressure is sort of on Gukesh now to perhaps retaliate or strike back, right? Ding is in a better position since he can decide whether he wants to full blown attack, go for try for another win, or just play it out, be solid, and for the rest of the match, even since he's up 1-0, right? So let's see how today's games unfolded. So it also starts with e4, same as Gukesh did yesterday, right? Gukesh then goes e5, responds symmetrically, knight f3, knight c6, and now bishop c4. We are in the Italian game. So not going for the Spanish, that's got a lot of depth into it as well. Ding says, let's go for Italian. And then Gukesh replies with bishop c5. Very standard, very typical. Opening reply played at the highest level. We're in the Gucci piano. Typical ideas here is now c3, uh, d3 to go for the ante, d3 and then bishop g5 ideas, or and then castle, even a4, which we'll see happens. So very dynamic game ahead. Ding decides then to go d3 into the Gaucho pianissimo variation. Knight f6 anti-Berlin, knight c3, and now a6. Line the four knights then, seen at the highest level as well. And must be mentioned that Vishy Anand's I love playing the structure a lot. And you can see the influence perhaps coming into this match where Gukesh then perhaps very much inspired then by Vishy. So Ding goes a4, preventing a b5 push, and also perhaps to go for a5 himself later to get more space. Most likely bishops drop in the structure going back to a7, but we'll now see after a4, d6, castles, h6 stopping bishop g5, and now bishop e3. And now Black's got a choice. Could capture on e3. This was Abdusatov had this similar against Caruana in a blitz match not too long ago. Okay, when it was actually bishop captured there after bishop e6. So this is the critical setup, right? White can opt to capture this bishop like that, or this bishop like this, or the bishop on e6 or c5. I mentioned Abdusatov game as he had this against Caruana where he captured on c5 and he won a great game. And then Prague also had the structure not too long ago, right? So Ding declines both bishop options and just pushes and advances for more space on a5. And it's worth mentioning that here Ding is still very much in prep. It's hardly spent 10 minutes on his clock, whereas Gukesh was burning a lot of time in this position, right? Already burned like 30, 40 minutes, I believe, right? So we in Ding's prep here. And we'll see how the game continues from here out, how flawlessly and effortlessly Ding plays it, right? So now we have bishop takes on c4, and we have d captures c. So yes, Ding has double D, double C pawns, but what he has going for him is a lot of pressure and control of the d5 square. Black in exchange hasn't got the d4 square for himself, and we'll see how this d-file becomes very important as the game progresses. So then the Gukesh castles, and Ding says, okay, I'm going to chop off your bishop as well, that side. And now we have d takes c. So now we're in a knight, four knights, late in a mid game, right? The queens will trade it soon after b3, so b3 is in range to solidify on c4, and then after the queens are traded, queen takes, and then rook f takes. So now we're going to it looks very drawish, very level, very solid then by both sides. So rook a to d8. Gukesh asking Ding, do you want to trade rooks with me? Ding says nope, not immediately. I'm going rook b to c1, and this move looks slightly peculiar, right? Ding is just trying to add more protection onto the c2 pawn, as ideas of knight to b4 would come, or even knight to d4, right? And after knight d4, you do not want to capture the d4 pawn, as you would be undoubling black's pawns. So just to show quickly, although yes, it won't be much of a advantage, but it is something, right? You can see the evaluation there. Black would be like minus 0.4. Obviously, still very much drawn, but it's more comfortable for black than here because now white still got the double C. The knight can't really jump in. Well, it could go to d5, yes. Let's say knight to d5, but then it's now simply just a bit better for black in this endgame. The reason being the pawn is d pawn and it's connected with the e pawn. c6 will come and threaten this d5 um, pawn as well. So if we turn that off and going back to the position, then Ding declines all of this and just drops his knight back to e1, preparing an f3 thrust to help support this pawn more, and ideas maybe of king f2, king f1 to bring the king closer as we are now in an early end game here, or late middle game going into the end. So rook to d6 then, Gukesh just wants to perhaps double up on the d file, double stack, classic double stack on the d. King to f1 by ding, g6, rook to d1, just eyeing, perhaps in the long term, medium to long term, asking Gukesh, do you want to trade rooks with me? Ding, Gukesh says, no, not yet. I'm going to set it up first. Let's go rook f to d8. And now Ding just goes f3, solidifying the e4 square here. So you can see it's hard to penetrate, hard to break down, even if these pawns advance. Thing just has to just plays it solid, no obligation on him to trade anything if it had to happen. He can let the trades come to him in this position. So king to g7, and now we have king to f2, and this is basically now signaling, you know what, the kings are just moving up and down, they're dancing on these squares. Can't really progress in here to e2 because the knights are guarding. So these moves indicating that the players want to end it peacefully, and h5 also just confirms that, straightening out the structure here. Knight to e2 then. A knight to e2 is then inviting some trades. So let's say after knight to e2, we could trade rook takes d6. Could even go rook takes d6 here or c takes, either or is fine. But c takes just undoubles everything nicely. And now king takes. And there's no progression for either side to be made yet, right? Knight to d7, not much to do. Perhaps knight to d7 ideas with f5 maybe, but that's maybe a bit ambitious. The rook can't really enter here. The knight doesn't have any squares to really jump in. Perhaps if you could get maybe knight d3, knight b2, knight a4, and knight b6, but this is very hopeful as the knight on d7 will just be planted and stop any ideas of any progression, right? So if we go back then, f3, king g7, king f2, h5, knight to e2. Here we have knight to c6, and a repetition happens after this knight to c6. We have knight to c3, knight to c6, and a threefold repetition was then agreed upon in this position on move 23. So quite a peaceful ending for these two fighters and warriors. Both sides quite pleased with the result. Um, Gukesh has stopped the bleeding now a bit because he's gotten on the scoreboard, which is good. And we'll see how tomorrow unfolds when Gukesh then has the white pieces again. If he will come with something very much different, if he'll stick to e4, if he'll go for d4 maybe, or c4, the English, will retaliate and beat Gukesh again with the black. We are yet to find out. Thank you guys for tuning in and have a good night ahead. Take care.